Hey, you guys, what I want to talk about today is a topic. Can people make you mad? Or can you make people mad? Right? Before we talk about that, I want to share something with you from the Bible. It's in Jeremiah chapter 25, verse 7. Yet you have not listened to me, declares the Lord, that you might provoke me to anger with the work of your hands to your own harm. So I just want to stop there. Now, there's a lot of different verses where the Lord, capital Lord, where he says that he is provoked to anger by the people of Israel. They treat other people bad. They worship all these idols and stuff. They do a lot of crazy things back then, just like people do today. And he says it provokes him to anger. Now, the word provoke in Hebrew would be the word ka'as. It's spelled K-A-A-S, pronounced ka'as. What it means is to stimulate or give rise to anger. Stimulate or give rise to anger, right? So stimulating anger. That's what this word provoke means. Ka'as, to stimulate or give rise to anger. Now, there is a word in Hebrew which means to make. To make. Make is the Hebrew word asa. In Greek, it would be the word poieo. Poieo. That means to make. But provoke is ka'as, to stimulate anger. Now, I want to talk about my childhood briefly. Because when I was a child, I guess you could say I had an idol. I didn't worship the idol as far as I could remember. Maybe I did. I don't remember bow down and worshiping it, but I remember my very favorite toy. My very favorite toy was the Incredible Hulk toy I had. I loved toys. But if I didn't, there were times that, if I didn't have an Incredible Hulk toy, maybe I lost my Incredible Hulk toy or it got broken. I wasn't one to get new toys all the time. My parents didn't say, "Oh, let's go buy you some toys." That wasn't often. I had friends that, they would sometimes give me toys. A buddy'd give me a toy or something. But I loved the Incredible Hulk. Now, I remember I had a couple Star Wars toys. And do you remember the Star Wars toy Chewbacca? Do you remember Chewbacca, the character from Star Wars? Chewbacca? I had a Chewbacca toy. I don't remember how I got it. Somebody must have given it to me, but my Chewbacca was my Incredible Hulk toy. I pretended that he was the Incredible Hulk because he was taller than the other Star Wars guys, and so in my childhood mind, he was my Hulk toy. So my Incredible Hulk was Chewbacca, okay? And I cherished the TV show called The Incredible Hulk. Yeah, they had a TV show made back in 1977. And I was 5 years old at the time when The Incredible Hulk aired on TV. There was a young man, early 20s, I believe. His name was Lou Ferrigno. Lou Ferrigno was a massive bodybuilder at the time. He was one of the most massive bodybuilders the world of bodybuilding had ever seen. They had seen Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, supposedly he stood around 6'1", 6'1.5", I think is what they said his height was. He was very, very symmetrical, well-developed, had a great physique, great symmetry. He knew how to pose, and he knew how to intimidate his competition. Lou Ferrigno, on the other hand, he was 6'5", had more muscle mass than Arnold Schwarzenegger, much taller than Arnold Schwarzenegger. But Lou Ferrigno was hearing impaired. He wore hearing aids, and he had been like this through childhood. And as a child, he had been bullied much of his life. And then you find out later on that Lou Ferrigno actually, one of the biggest bullies in his life was his very own father. And Lou Ferrigno, he's older than I am, of course. But the one thing Lou Ferrigno did that I didn't even know existed yet was he read Incredible Hulk comic books when he was a child. And when he was young, those comic books inspired him. He wanted to be the Incredible Hulk so bad. So he started lifting weights, pumping iron, and, started putting some muscle on and growing. And then later on in life, he's chosen to play his childhood hero, the Incredible Hulk. Now, the one thing I had in common, I'm sure Lou Ferrigno and I had a few things in common, but the one thing we did have in common was we loved that character, the Incredible Hulk. I didn't know there was a comic book of the Incredible Hulk. All I knew about was the TV show. And then the TV show, they painted Lou Ferrigno green to be the Incredible Hulk. Arnold Schwarzenegger actually, they wanted to use him to play the Incredible Hulk, but he had some other Hollywood stuff going on. So he told these guys that we're going to produce this show, you should talk to this guy, Louis Ferrigno. And so when they met Lou Ferrigno, there was another guy that was a character called Jaws from a James Bond film. A very tall man. I think the guy was like 7 feet tall or so, I believe, this actor. And the character in one of the James Bond films, his name was Jaws. And they actually tried him out to play the Incredible Hulk, and he was actually even in a scene in one of the early shows as the Incredible Hulk. And I think the scene was where he was helping a little girl that was like in a lake and she couldn't swim, and so the Incredible Hulk went up to a tree and pushed the tree out of the ground, and the tree went into the lake, and he's kind of like gesturing that she should grab hold of the tree and such. And I believe that was in that scene where he's pushing the tree. I believe, if my memory is right, that's where this guy that played Jaws, I think that's when they used him to see how he would do. But one of the creators of the show had a daughter, and the daughter told her dad that Lou Ferrigno is the guy that should play the Hulk. So they chose Lou Ferrigno. And that's the start of Lou Ferrigno's ultra fame. Yes, he started in bodybuilding, but then he went into the TV show The Incredible Hulk, and it went for some years, and it was my very favorite show I had ever seen when I was a child, and I pretended I was the Hulk all the time, and all my toys were just based on The Incredible Hulk, right? I mean, my Chewbacca toy was the Hulk. Eventually, I did get an Incredible Hulk toy, but I think a kid from school stole it from me. I brought it to school one day, and he oh, can I see it? And I never got my toy back, and it broke my heart, and I tried to get it back, but he pretended he didn't know what I was talking about. And we were in elementary school. But anyway, I have a box full of toys that I've saved over the years. I still have a bunch of these toys in a box, at home, a big cardboard box. And I don't know what I'm going to do with them someday, but I have a bunch of Hulk toys in there and other stuff. Well, anyhow, what I'm getting at is on the TV show, The Incredible Hulk, there was a man that played a character named Dr. David Banner. The TV show, The Incredible Hulk, they called the guy that transformed into the Hulk Dr. David Banner. Now, in the comic books, his name was Bruce Banner, or to be technical, Robert Bruce Banner. But Robert Bruce Banner went by the name Bruce. Now, do you know why they didn't use the name Bruce for the TV show and they used David instead? Well, I heard a lot of different things. One of the things was David versus Goliath kind of thing, because the Hulk was David Banner's alter ego, so kind of a David versus Goliath. But I also heard this, that in the 70s, the name Bruce, well, you had a Batman show in the 70s. And his name was Bruce Wayne. But also, supposedly, the name Bruce was considered to be an effeminate name in the 70s. So they wanted to give the character a little bit more of a masculine name, and they called him David. So in my mind, he was Dr. David Banner. And the one thing, when you'd watch the beginning of the show, it would start out, with its kind of like introduction to the show. Dr. David Banner, physician, scientist, looking for a way to tap into the hidden strength that all humans have. But suddenly, one day, he got dosed with gamma radiation. I'm not quoting it right, but that's kind of the gist of it. Anyhow, one of the lines in the introduction of the show, and it was in one of the episodes of the show, one of the very first, if not the first episode. I think the first episode was a two-parter, so it might have been on the second half of the two-part. But one of the lines that David Banner says to another guy that's a reporter named Mr. McGee, Jack McGee. David Banner says to Mr. McGee, he says, "Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." See, the thing that triggered the transformation of David Banner to become the Incredible Hulk was anger and or pain. So if he was suffering a tremendous amount of pain or a tremendous amount of anger, he would transform into the green Goliath known as the Incredible Hulk. The one thing that he says is, don't make me angry. So once again, I want to ask you, can people make you angry? Can you make people angry? Can you make God angry if you are living in Old Testament times? Did God say to Israel, "You make me angry"? If he did, in that book of Jeremiah, he would have said, "You asa me angry," which means you make. But he didn't say that. He said, "You ka'as me to anger," which is you provoke me which means giving rise, stimulating anger. Okay? Stimulating or giving rise to anger. So here's something interesting I want to share with you. Is when I was in my Jehovah's Witness days, I was married at age 24, and I think my wife and I think our divorce was finalized when I was 32 years old. Maybe 31 and a half. But here's the thing. We were married Jehovah's Witnesses. My wife ended up having an affair with another man that wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. It was somebody that she met at the gym. And they started hooking up. He was married. He had children. He was a lawyer. He had money. He was a handsome guy. He was that tall, dark, handsome guy. He was much taller than me. Probably 6'2" or so. And you know, he talked to her, and I don't know what the conversations were. Other people saw them together at the gym, but nobody told me. People kept it quiet. People that knew me, my friends. People that worked at the gym. Not one person told me, hey, your wife and this guy are hanging out together, and they drive in his car together, and then there was people that knew stuff. 9 months later is when I found out about their affair. And she kept it so well hidden from me, right? But I sensed there was something going on, because she was accusing me of a lot of things and always suspicious of me and acting very strange. And suddenly I found out that she had a secret cell phone, and she was so anti-cell phones back then. That's when cell phones were relatively new, and she those are evil things. We should never get them. But suddenly I found out she had a cell phone, right? Why didn't she tell me she had a cell phone? What's going on? I still didn't know why. But eventually, I caught the two of them. And I didn't plan on it. It just happened. And that's a long story. Well, you know, if you've ever been married or dating and somebody has an affair on you, you know, it hurts. You know what it does. It affects people differently. For me, man, my pride took a huge hit. And I still would see that guy at the gym now and then. And, oh, you don't even know. I wanted to fight that guy so bad. I wanted to provoke him to make the first move so that I could ground him and pound him, which I would have done. But it didn't happen. Now, put all that aside, my wife and I, ex-wife, she and I did file divorce. And here's why. We tried to make things work. And we started going to therapy together. Counseling, marriage counseling. And I even read books about how to survive an affair and such. And there was a man that wrote about how his wife had an affair on him for years and years, and he let her have the affair, and he waited for her until she finally got done with the affair, and then he took her back immediately, and they worked things out. And I remember when I read that book, I'm like, how is that possible? How did this guy do that? Because all I could do the whole time, when my wife and I, we did go to counseling, I thought we were trying to work it out. I know that I was. But what I didn't know is that she was still seeing this guy the entire time. And I found that out months and months later, and that's when I finally said enough. I think we had been doing counseling together and started working things out for about a year. And we even purchased another home together. We sold our first home, and then we purchased another home together, which means we were planning on, being together forever. We bought this house. At the time, it was an expensive house, we thought, but we were doing it, And then I found out that she never stopped having the affair with the guy. And she showed no sorrow for it. The only thing that she was sorry about is she got caught. She never showed any type of sorrow. She never introspected. That was one of the things with her. It was like a person that was incapable of introspection. So anyway, that's when I had enough. But during counseling, we didn't go to Jehovah's Witness elders for counseling. We actually went to marriage counseling through our insurance plan and such. And it was interesting. I learned communication skills when I was in this counseling. I remember one of the things that the counselor said was, you never want to tell your wife, and wife, you never want to tell your husband, you make me this, you make me that, you make me angry, you make me feel this and that, right? Because those words kept coming out of both of our mouths. What the counselor said to do is to reword things. For instance, let me think of an example. Okay, I didn't do this, but let's just pretend when I come home from work, I like to take my clothes and throw them on the ground. Okay, I don't do that, never did that. I'm a very clean person, kind of a neat freak. But let's say that was the problem. And let's say my wife would say in counseling, when he throws his clothes on the ground, he makes me so mad. You make me mad when you throw your clothes on the ground instead of putting them in a hamper. So the counselor would say, instead of saying you make me, she said, try these words. When you throw your clothes on the ground, I feel hurt. I feel bothered. I feel this way. When you do this, I feel. Okay? Instead of you make me, this is how I feel when you do it. See, God didn't say, you make me mad. You make me angry, like Dr. David Banner told Mr. McGee. God says, you provoke me, you stimulate it, and wow, if God can even be stimulated to anger, couldn't you? So the question, can you make someone angry? Can they make you angry? Well, if you read books or talk to therapists, most likely they'll say, no one can make you anything. And I've heard that for years. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know. I'm not trying to give you therapy. I'm not trying to tell you this is the proper way to think because of counseling, but I do know one thing. If God can be provoked to anger, and what's the Bible say? God is love. God is love. So God's love can be provoked to anger. And you, who tries their best to love, and we fail, we can't be provoked to anger, but God can? No, my friends. I would say quite opposite. I would say we most certainly can be provoked to anger. Or, in other words, we can be ka'as, stimulated to anger, given rise to anger. I'm going to tell you a little secret because it just came up in my mind. And I didn't plan it, but I had a terrible, terrible, sucky childhood. I had parents that were very toxic. And that's not me holding a grudge and being unforgiving. I'm just saying, I had the most unimaginable, worst childhood and the worst parenting you could ever imagine. Very, very, very toxic environment. Very toxic environment. Toxic. Unimaginable that children were raised in that kind of environment. When I grew up, moved out of my parents' house, I tried to be the forgiving son, because the Bible says forgive, you better forgive. So I tried to forgive and, go to my parents' house, do my duty as a son, go visit once in a while, have dinner, visit. Unfortunately, that environment continued to be toxic in different ways. Some reason my parents love to talk trash about my siblings. And when I'm not around, they love to talk trash about me to my siblings. But if I am around, they talk trash to me about my siblings. I've never known of other people's parents. They're probably out there, most definitely, but parents that love to trash their kids and hope the worst for their kids, and I'm not kidding you. It's like the parents that would just love to hear that their children are homeless, broke, and poor and miserable. And I'm not making this up. That's who they still are. They have not changed. So, think of it as you will. But here's what's strange. When I was younger, early 20s, in my 30s, even 40s, let me tell you, whenever I would see my mother, I owned a hair salon when I was a Jehovah's Witness. And if my mom came to me to get a haircut, I don't know why this happened every single time I saw my mom. It's like I would be flushed with blood. It would rush to my face. My face would turn beet red. My eyes would turn red. And my eyes, they felt like they were on fire. Not like burning, like somebody squirted acid in them or something, but it just felt like there was all this heat and adrenaline flowing through my body. I wasn't thinking bad thoughts that I was aware of. I wasn't angry that I was aware of, but for some reason, just her presence stimulated something in me that I hated feeling. It provoked something in me. Now, I don't know if she was aware of it because I really tried to put on a good face. Oh, hi, how are you? But deep down inside, that feeling, that provoke, that stimulation always happened. Would it happen today? I'm not interested in finding out. Not anymore. It has nothing to do with unforgiveness. It has nothing to do with not being a loving son. It just has to do with when you're around somebody that chooses to be toxic and they are incapable of introspecting, looking within, searching within, instead of always pointing out to someone else being the problem. Incapable, unwilling to look within and see a need for change. Paul talks about people that would exist in the last days. He wrote a letter to a young man named Timothy. And Paul was quite the mentor for Timothy, like a father figure. And Paul tells Timothy, why don't I just read it to you real quick? And let me tell you something. If you guys are provoked, stimulated to anger by people today, don't be surprised. Paul prophesied about it. And he prophesied to Timothy this in 2 Timothy chapter 3, starting in verse 1. But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty. This word difficulty in Greek is kalepos. It means times that are difficult to cope with and hard to bear. So if you're finding these days, each and every day, difficult to cope with and hard to bear, is it because you're not putting your trust in Jesus? Is it because you're not reading enough Bible and relying on God enough? Well, Paul is speaking to a fellow believer. Understand this, Timothy. You're a believer, I'm a believer, and in the last days, here's what believers are going to go through. It is going to be times that are difficult to cope, meaning you just don't want to keep on going anymore. You're ready to give up. Why? Because in verse 2, people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness like Jehovah's Witnesses and other religious people, but denying its power. What does Timothy say? Or what does Paul tell Timothy? Listen. Gonna hear from a bunch of preachers, you're still supposed to love everybody and hang out with them and give them hugs and be a good example? No. Paul tells Timothy, avoid such people. Now, if you take all of these descriptions that he talks about how people will be in the last days. And if you want to put it all in one simple word, here's the English word: narcissists. Hey, Timothy, this is why it's going to be difficult to cope. This is why fellow believers such as you and me are going to want to avoid people. And he recommends avoiding them, so you might be all alone. You might have to find yourself as a loner in this world. Well, how are we supposed to connect with one another? The Bible says that we're supposed to fellowship. Don't forsake it. Don't forsake gathering together. Well, we're here on YouTube gathering together, aren't we? Because you might go to church buildings and you might find narcissists in those places, right? Paul's not saying, hey, this is just going to be the bad people that aren't Christians. Oh, no. Avoid such people, meaning these are people that Timothy, and you, people that are living in the last days, these are people that you are associating with. And Paul is saying this: avoid them. Which means if you got to disconnect from them, even if it's family members, then you disconnect, because they are narcissists, incapable, because they are unwilling to introspect. And if they cannot introspect, it gives them incapability of change. They have a block. They do not change their minds. Because why? Because the first thing he says is they are lovers of themselves, which is the Greek word philatos. A lover of oneself, preoccupied with their own selfish desires. That, my friend, philatos, is the Greek word for the English word narcissist. This other word stood out to me. Swollen with conceit. Swollen with conceit. Selfie, me, all about me, look at me. Now, I'm not saying don't take pictures, profile pictures for Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Not saying that. That's not swollen with conceit. Making progress with your diet or exercise routine, that's not swollen with conceit. You just might be somebody that's encouraging others, motivating others, right? Come on, you can do this thing. Don't let your health go. You can do this thing, right? You might be somebody that's 70, 80 years old, and you didn't take care of your health all your life, and now you're doing it. And all these other people that are in their 70s or 80s, they're saying, no, I can't do it. I'm 70, I'm 80. I know people way younger than that that say, oh, I can't do it. I'm 50. If you can stimulate somebody to be motivated and move and do it, that's awesome. We're not talking about that. Swollen with conceit, you've seen it. These are people that just can't get enough of themselves, right? This is narcissism. If you got toxic, even family members in your life, and they just continue and continue and continue to provoke you to anger, to pain, to hurt, to depression, to sadness, and much, much more, I'm here to tell you, cut them off. Have nothing to do with them. That might just be the greatest gift you could ever give them in your life. Because if they haven't woken up by now, and you still keep caving in, oh, well, I guess I better do my son duty, my daughter duty, my brother duty, my sister duty, my cousin, my aunt, my uncle did, whatever it is. Take advice from a very inspired person like Paul. Avoid such people. Avoid them. Don't hang with them anymore. Don't answer their calls. If you got to block them, block them. If you got to delete their contact information, you delete it and you stick to it. And they're going to try everything. They're going to send messages and try to hit at your heartstrings like they always have been doing and continue to do. But that's just to turn things on to make you feel bad. Oh, did I say make you feel bad? Excuse me. To provoke you to feeling bad about yourself. Like, you're the bad guy. You're the bad girl. What's wrong with you? Aren't you a loving Christian? Don't you know about forgiveness? Has nothing to do with forgiveness, you guys, or unforgiveness. You need to take care of you. See, there's a thing that I live by. I'm trying to live by. Something that I had no idea about in my younger days. You can't give what you don't have. Somebody asks me for $1,000. If I don't have it, I can't give it to them. I might be able to tell them how they can get $1,000 if they work for it or go on the streets and beg for it or go into a place and rob it and take it. I can tell them those things, but if I don't have the $1,000, I can't give what I don't have. If you don't have true, not narcissistic love, but true agape, not philatos, but agape, a God love for yourself and take care of yourself. How can you love others? How can you take care of others when you just keep letting yourself get wrecked and destroyed over and over and over again? You have to take care of you so that you will have the ability to take care of others. You have to love you so that you can give that love out to others. Even scripture says the only reason you love God is because God first loved you. You can't love God unless you know He loves you. You understand? So you guys, you got to take care of you. Whether somebody makes you mad or provokes you to mad, doesn't matter. That's just a bunch of stuff, psychological and all that. But you know what? Maybe it is cool to reword our things and think differently. Maybe you didn't make me mad, but you most definitely, most certainly provoked it. You know, you might have somebody that's a Jehovah's Witness parent or a narcissist parent or whatever kind of parent or spouse or somebody you're dating or whoever it is. And they might use that psychological babble on you. Nobody can make you mad. Don't you know? Haven't you ever read it? And they say you can't. Nobody can make you mad. You choose to be mad. No, I didn't choose to be mad. You provoked me to anger. Really? Yeah. Do you know why? Let me show you in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 25, verse 7. Even God was provoked to anger. Different way to think about things, right? All right, you guys, this video went on long enough. I'm going to get going. I hope this has blessed somebody out there. I love you guys. And the only reason I love you is because I know He loves me. And I'm trying to love me too, but in a healthy, godly way. And give that love out. And if other people want to judge you as unloving because you had to disconnect from them, they say you're not a godly person, you're not a loving person, let them say it. They just will not introspect. They won't ever look at themselves and say, maybe I'm the cause. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I provoked something. Maybe I need to do the change. Hey, listen, you guys. It's good to introspect. Don't always think everybody else has got problems. What's wrong with everybody? If you're wreaking havoc out there and provoking people, then you've got the problem. But the cool thing is, if you can at least detect that through introspection, then you have the ability to change the way you think. Change your thinking, right? Change your thinking. That's a word that's all over throughout the scriptures. Your Bible says repent, which is a huge mistranslation of the word metanoia. It means change your thinking. And I encourage you to do that today. And if you change your thinking, you'll also stop allowing people to abuse you, because you are allowing it to happen, right? Cut that stuff off. And I will tell you this, that just might be the greatest gift you give to those narcissists out there. You understand me? Think about it. All right, you guys, have a great one. We'll talk again.